Introducing G-Core Managed Kubernetes, the ultimate solution for streamlined Kubernetes management. Experience support for bare metal nodes and a robust 99.9 uptime SLA at no extra cost. Provision Kubernetes clusters effortlessly with a single click using their intuitive dashboard, API, or Terraform. Seamlessly integrate with G-Core external DNS and easily provision block volume storage for your requirements. And of course, stay up to date with the latest Kubernetes versions. Plus, they have an exclusive offer just for you. Click the G-Core link in the show notes and use promo code CLOUDCAST and receive €100 credit to try G-Core services today. That's promo code CLOUDCAST to receive €100 credit on your G-Core services today.
Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome back to the Cloudcast. We are coming to you live from the massive Cloudcast studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. We are into August 2023. It's that time of year when, yes, it's hot. The kids are kind of at the end. If you have kids, or if you're around people that have kids, the summer is starting to get towards the end. People are starting to talk about going back to school. Aaron and I are both in the midst of middle of getting kids off to college. Aaron is second, mine my first. So our homes are filled up with all sorts of things that the kids need to go off to college. And so the next couple of weeks, which is not only when a lot of the end of summer vacation stuff is going on, but also both Aaron and I are doing some stuff where we have to take kids off to college. Some of these shows, or at least the Sunday shows maybe, might be a little more succinct, a little shorter than they have been in the past. We will get back to more elaborate, more drawn out, more longer form shows a little later as we get into the fall and a few more topics pop up and stuff. But summer is as we often say, the dog days of summer. This is when things are hot, topics are short. This week on today's Sunday Perspective, I want to dive into something that not only I've been seeing quite a bit. Obviously, we get a lot of requests for topics. We get a lot of pitches for topics for people that want to come on the show and tell us about things. And, lots of them are interesting. We try and do our best to sort through and figure out which ones would be most interesting to you, our audience, those of you who give us some of your time every week, and we try and educate you, or at least introduce you to new things. And one of the things I've noticed for a while now, and it feels like maybe it's been this whole year or so forth, is we are now as an industry doing this thing where there's only two buckets. There's the bucket of people who are building applications, developers, app dev, whatever we want to call them. And then everything else in the entire industry is lumped into this thing called platform engineering. Right. We no longer DevOps. We no longer infrastructure. We no longer security. We no longer network. We no longer storage. We just platform engineering, everything that isn't the people that are writing code. And I say that not so much tongue in cheek, but it's become this thing that I feel like the entire industry is doing. And I want to kind of dive into it, and I want to kind of connect the dots with something that I found was a little bit funny this week as I was reading through some stuff. I'll elaborate on it after the break. But I think we as an industry need to be a little bit careful of what we're doing in terms of kind of assuming and lumping together a huge number of people and a huge number of functions that do some distinct things that may or may not need to work better together. But we're going to create some interesting sort of combinations that if we're not careful about it, and if you do it for long enough, you're going to lose the nuance. And that nuance is fairly important in terms of making sure that, for all the things that today and now are getting lumped into quote unquote platform engineering, that those things do well. So we're going to dive a little bit into that after the break. Are you getting pressure from finance to justify or reduce your cloud bill? CloudZero is the only cloud cost platform loved by engineers and trusted by finance. CloudZero can identify unused, idle, or over-provisioned resources, alert you to spend anomalies, and organize 100% of your spend into a framework that mirrors your business structure, like cost per customer, product feature, or team. It's the most powerful platform ever built to provide accurate, granular visibility into your total cloud spend without the typical pitfalls of legacy cloud cost management tools like endless tagging or clunky Kubernetes support. Manage cost, optimize development, and maximize profit, all in one platform. Join companies like Rapid7, Drift, and SeatGeek by visiting cloudzero.com/cloudcast to get started. That's cloudzero.com/cloudcast. Visit today to experience immediate and ongoing savings on your cloud bill. Today's episode of the Cloudcast is sponsored by Datadog, a real-time monitoring platform that unifies metrics, traces, and logs into one tightly integrated platform. Datadog APM empowers developer teams to identify anomalies, resolve issues, and improve application performance. Begin collecting stack traces, visualizing them as flame graphs, organizing them into profile types such as CPU, I/O, and more. Teams can search for specific profiles, correlate them with distributed traces, and identify slow or underperforming code for analysis and optimization. Plus, with Datadog APM Live Search, you can perform searches across the full stream of ingested traces generated by your application over the last 15 minutes. Try Datadog APM free with a 14-day trial, and Datadog will send you a free t-shirt. Visit datadog.com/APM-cloudcast to get started. That's datadog.com/APM-cloudcast. And we're back. And as I mentioned, Sunday Perspective, it's an exercise in trying to find something interesting from the week or from the last couple of weeks, whether that's in pop culture or in the news or something like that, and trying to connect it to some of the trends that we see in our industry. And one of the things that I end up doing this time of year, as I've mentioned many, many times in the show, both Aaron and I are sports fans. We're in particular college football fans here in the United States. And this is the time of year in August in particular when pretty much every other sport has stopped playing except for baseball, which is just a long, continuous slog that nobody really pays attention to this time of year. And we are about a month away from college football starting. And what happens in this month leading up to college football is every media outlet, every podcast, every news outlet is doing previews of the college football season. And I won't get into any of that. I won't get into teams. I won't get into football. But one that sort of jumped out at me, my sort of favorite writers of this stuff, writers of college football on the internet, is a gentleman named Spencer Hall, his writing partner Holly Anderson, who run a site called Channel 6. I'll put a link in the show notes. And they were writing a preview for some of the football coming up in the fall. And in particular, they were writing about one of the areas that, the set of teams is average. They are sort of collectively very much the same. There's not necessarily any one or two teams that are the best, and there aren't necessarily one or two teams that are the worst. They just collectively all figured out ways to sort of all be in the middle. And so it becomes a very difficult thing to explain to people like, okay, here's a sport which typically has sort of the best teams, the worst teams, and then a bunch in the middle. And they were sort of explaining how everything has sort of lumped together. And the analogy they use, which I thought was fantastic, and it comes from a song that I had never heard of. I guess it's maybe 10 or so years old, and it's called I'm at the combination PizzaHut and TacoBell. And it basically is this sort of long-running song, 4 or 5 minutes, that talks about these guys who have found themselves in one of these very American, and maybe they're around the world now as like the Yum brands have gone out and tried to conquer the world. But if you're ever in America, you will often find this, especially along freeways and so forth. You are at a thing that is a combination Pizza Hut and Taco Bell. And so the song sort of goes on. I put a link to it in the show notes. You can listen to it if you've never listened to it. But in essence, what they talk about is not only, hey, where am I? Well, I'm at this weird combination restaurant, which is both, in and of itself, two fast food entities that have gone from just offering the most basic of foods, pizza or tacos, and have hence sort of layered on all kinds of things. So you can get a taco that is also a burrito, that's also an enchilada, that's also a pizza. And you can get a pizza that also has cheese stuffed in the crust. So it's essentially cheese bread, but it can also be wings that are stuffed in the pizza, that can be stuffed in the taco, it can be stuffed in these things. And it sort of reminded me as I was thinking about it and sort of laughing about it, what we've turned ourselves into in terms of our industry has basically said, well, there are application developers, which in and of itself is this weird kind of cramming together of lots of different application developers. So, if you said application developers to a group of people who are infrastructure people, they'll all sort of nod their head and they'll go, yep, those are the people that write code and they build applications and so on and so forth. But if you went to a room of people who were, claiming, were identifying themselves as application developers, the first thing they always ask is, well, what language do you program in? Are you a Java developer? Are you a data science engineer? Are you, are you a data scientist? Hence, you are, focused on AI models and so forth. Are you a front-end engineer? Are you a back-end engineer? But we tend to just sort of lump them in as application developers or just developers. So we have this problem in our industry of this big lumping together of all things developers, even though if you are a Java developer, the tools, the languages, the frameworks, the way that you build code, the ecosystems that you work with are going to be completely different than if you are a data scientist and you are looking at AI and you are looking at, am I a data scientist? Am I an ML engineer? Am I an ML ops person? What languages do I write in? All that sort of stuff. But then the flip side of that is we've then also taken everything that is not developers, not applications to a certain extent. And for some reason in our industry, we've lumped that into platform engineering because we've decided that, well, in order for the application developers to be as productive as they possibly can be, for them to not worry at all about anything except writing the application and then putting it somewhere, putting it into a system, CI/CD, the deployment pipeline, whatever that might be, and then not having to worry about anything else, worry about networking, worry about security, worry about high availability, worry about, different patterns. We have the platform engineering team, which is not only a set of tools and technologies, but it's also some sort of amalgamation of the network team, storage team, infrastructure team, security team, whatever else, maybe the build team, all lumped together. And it's sort of those two things combined, the combination TacoBell, PizzaHut, and the everything is now platform engineering, kind of made me laugh a little bit because it does sort of fit into the new mindset that we have, in which nobody has any patience for anything that, if you have to explain anything to anybody, that lasts more than 30 seconds. If it doesn't fit, in a tweet, in a TikTok, if it doesn't fit in a thread, if it doesn't fit in, the words for, a 50-word ad or something, we no longer have the patience for it. And so we tend to have a tendency to sort of lump everything together. And then what also tends to happen is we decide that, well, like DevOps wasn't good enough, so we needed DevSecOps. And then we needed Ops wasn't good enough, so we needed FinOps. FinOps wasn't good enough, but we needed RevOps. And maybe we need FinRevSecOps or DevRevSec, whatever ops. It's essentially the equivalent of, well, we used to have a taco, but now we have a taco wrapped in a burrito, which is also wrapped in a quesadilla, which is also wrapped in, a guacamole shelled pizza. And I think we got to be a little bit careful as an industry. It's interesting to do that. Obviously, we've seen some of that happen because, different companies and vendors or cloud providers have become fairly large and they've been able to acquire things or they've been able to roll things together. But the more and more that we find ourselves saying, well, I can no longer explain the nuance of everything because people no longer have time frames. They no longer have the patience. They no longer have the attention span to sort of pay attention to it. Hence, we'll just sort of lump everything together into these sort of catch-all words, these catch-all phrases. It becomes very interesting how quickly we start to, as an industry, make everything we do a combination Pizza Hut and Taco Bell. And, I don't want to knock on anybody for doing this. I think, we have a tendency in our industry to sort of follow trends and follow patterns. And, if something has any sort of success, then everything sort of follows. It's not unusual in our industry. Lots of industries do this. But, I think that the one thing we got to be very careful of is it's very easy for the vendors or analyst firms or, industry trade foundations, to sort of lump things together like this so that it's easy for us to explain things. The hard part is when you are actually working with the companies who are responsible for building those applications, maintaining those applications. More times than not, you go and talk to them and you'll say, well, do you have a platform engineering team? Are all your teams lumped together? Do they all have the exact same goal of, getting that gigantic 17-layer burrito / pizza / whatever stuffed into your mouth and fed and so forth? They go, not really. No, we're not there yet. We're not organized that way. And we're not, we're sort of maybe moving in that direction, but, we're not necessarily there yet. And they may also say, we don't have just one platform, right? Platform engineering does this weird thing of sort of saying is there one team to manage all platforms? What happens if this team over here, needs to manage their own platform? Are they part of platform engineering? Are they a subset? Are they a division of big platform? Are they, how does that necessarily work? And those are the kind of nuances I think that we lose sometimes when we mash together, there are the application people who we've now sort of made all the same. They're all developers, and the platform engineering team, which is all just the same. Is it one giant platform? How do we get nuance out of that? So anyways, I use today as sort of a challenge to people, to think about as you're talking about whatever it might be, platform engineering or developers. In this case, now that we've lumped everything into two buckets, everything is now either a PizzaHut or a TacoBell. And as we combine those two things together and we realize, well, when they're only combined together, I can only do one thing, which is layer on more and more stuff onto them. You run the risk that people don't understand what that means. You run the risk that that's not a reality. And you run the risk that you're going to become highly addicted to this idea that you can only explain things in the most kind of lumped together, layered together, unnuanced way of doing it. I only highlight it because, as I mentioned at the beginning, we get a lot of pitches from people. We get a lot of requests for people to come talk on the show. In some cases, we get requests from the guests, from the audience to say, hey, can you talk about this thing? And we've just been seeing this trend over the last 6, 9, 12 months that everything feels like it's getting very unnuanced. And I think it's because we have shorter attention spans and because we're not exactly sure anymore, who specifically needs certain capabilities and what happens when these teams come together. So anyways, let's be careful that we don't only create the combination PizzaHut TacoBell. There are more nuances out there than just layering a bunch of things together in ways that may or may not be realistic. So with that, I'll wrap it up. Hope everybody's doing well. I think Aaron and I have a couple of weeks of kind of getting through some of this stuff, getting the school prep stuff ready to go for the year. And then we will be back to, kind of more, longer form sort of Sunday perspectives and some deeper things and so forth. So appreciate it. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's, enjoying the end of the summer for where you are. Hopefully you are staying somewhat cool. I know it's hot. It's, 90 plus degrees here in North Carolina. Couple of other things, as I mentioned, we are trying to get the show onto more and more social platforms, if that's where you're learning it from. We do have this one little glitch on Threads and Instagram in which the Cloudcast account, somehow we lost the password and Instagram will not send us a retrieval code. We've been trying for 2 weeks. So if you are looking for us there, we may not be there right now. We're still trying to figure that out. If anybody knows any magic tricks on Instagram to get the retrieval code to come to your phone, we'd appreciate it. But we've been trying that for a couple of weeks and having some struggles. So anyways, we are on Twitter. We are on Facebook. We are on TikTok, we are on LinkedIn and a bunch of other places. So if you're looking for the show, maybe some other commentary about it, beyond just how you get it from your podcast feed, those are places you can get it. And we hope to have the Threads / Instagram stuff fixed here sooner than later. So with that, I'll wrap it up. Thanks for listening. Thanks for telling a friend. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to The Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.